all of you. Actually, my term as a Hauser Fellow ended yesterday. I was just telling Joy that I was supposed to not be involved with HKS anymore starting today. But because this is a very important occasion, because this is the first event.
Yes.
This is the first event of the Women in Color Caucus. They have been accredited 2 weeks ago, a week ago, more than a week ago, and I think this is really something to celebrate. So I am so happy to be part of this first event. I am also happy that we have a few men with us this afternoon. I didn't know I would keynote. When Joy was inviting me, I asked her, should I prepare something? She said, no, just share your stories from the center. So that's what I'm going to do. As Joy said in the introduction, I spent much more longer time doing lawyering work for people in the margins. I was a politician. I only became a politician starting 2013 when I lost my husband to a plane crash. It was my husband who was a politician in the family. He was a member of the president's cabinet in 2012 when the plane which was carrying him crashed, and he perished in that plane crash, and that was what paved the way for my joining politics, to take over the vacuum that was left because of him. But in all the years that my husband was a politician, I was a public service lawyer. The kind of lawyering that we did was, we would go to the communities, spend a lot of time with the marginalized sectors. When I say marginalized, I refer to farmers, fisherfolk, informal settlers, the indigenous peoples, laborers, women and children. So we would go to the communities, in the communities where access to justice is very difficult. We would organize them, we would organize these communities by sectors, and then we would translate the laws that were relevant to them in their dialect, and teach them not just their rights under the law, but all the legal processes, so that even if there is no lawyer available for them, they would be able to protect their rights. It was anchored on the belief that if people know of their rights under the law, they will be in a better position to fight for their rights. So that was what I was doing for a long time. It so happened that I was the only woman. I was the only woman in our team. So it sort of became quite natural that most of the women activities and most of the women cases were assigned to me. And if we talk of litigation, it was always that the cases would stem from violence against women, incidents. But this is the one part of the story that I want to tell you. Usually, when a woman would get violated, it would always be domestic. 80% of the time, it would be domestic. And we would get reports. We would get reports that a woman has been subjected to this and that. We would rescue the woman. We would help her every step of the way. We would bring her to the hospital. We would bring her to we call that a medical legal in the Philippines, to go through the process. And then the police will be involved, the prosecutors will be involved, and I would usually be the private lawyer of the woman violated. Most of the time, they would stay with us because we didn't have halfway houses yet at that time for women who were victims of violence committed by their husbands. But it was always the case that after a lot of processing, and cases are filed already, and I will be in court already trying to defend our woman client, the client will disappear without telling us what happened. So we'll be in court. The judge would always threaten to dismiss the case because the client was not there anymore. It was always the case. There are only very, very few clients who would decide to pursue the cases filed against either the husband or a partner or a boyfriend or whatever. And It happens all the time, so that we try to get to the bottom of things. And most of the time, the reason for their changing their minds is they're not economically empowered. While they wanted to file cases against their husbands, while they wanted to get out of abusive relationships, they didn't want to part with their children. And they couldn't afford to bring the children with them because they didn't have jobs of their own. They were very much dependent on their husbands. Most women, especially in rural places in the Philippines, are considered housewives, meaning to say they're focused on taking care of the household and the children, so they don't have income of their own. So that becomes the power. That becomes the power of the abuser. So we were confronted with it so many times and for so many years that we decided to act on it. We organized women. We organized a movement called Bantay Familia. Bantay Familia is the English translation is Family Watch. It's a support system for women, not just women who are victims of abuse, but to prevent abuses from taking over. It has been a slow burn. It was a slow process in the sense that you have to break cultural dictates. But organizing is one way of making women more courageous. Meaning to say, if they know that they have a support system that's there, if they know that if something happens to them, they would have people in the community to go to, it makes them more courageous. It became a sort of a success story in a way, but wasn't enough. It wasn't enough because it was very temporary in the sense that they still remain economically unempowered. So the realization is that the reason why I'm telling you this is that for most rural women in the Philippines, they become braver, they become more courageous if they are economically empowered. So most of the programs that we initially started as far as violence against women, the advocacy against violence against women is concerned, is really to make sure that women are economically empowered. Meaning to say, if they cannot afford to work outside their homes, because they have children to look after, we look for opportunities for them to be able to earn even while inside their houses. And again, the lesson is that it doesn't matter how much they earn. As long as they're earning, it's power for them. So that was one of the lessons. It was an advocacy I did for a very long time. And it progressed in a way that in the city where I come from, we were able to form a Naga City. Naga City is the name of our city. Naga City Women's Council. It's actually a policy-making council that's composed of representatives from many of the women groups. And the importance of having a council is that it institutionalized all the initiatives that we started. Because many initiatives that have been started would taper off when there is a change of leadership, or when the leadership is not supported anymore, or they would cut funding for programs. But because of the institutionalizing of the Naga City Council for Women, it became an institutional program of the city, such that funding for women causes have been automatic already. When I say it's become automatic appropriation, women's groups do not have to beg for it every year in and year out. So the funding is there already, and because of the council, decisions on where the funding will be used is also decided upon by the women representatives. So it has created a group of women who became leaders. And when women became leaders, the multiplier effect is very high, because it increases their capacity to fight for themselves. It increases, and when they start fighting for themselves, men cooperate. So the Bantay Familia program that we did, there's a men's chapter of it already. When we started, it was just purely women, but it's also men fighting for their families. So the multiplier effect is such that it's not just the women who become braver, but families became stronger because everyone was considered a community already protecting the same advocacy. So when I became vice president already, I was vice president during a very tumultuous time in our history, and I will not dwell with that anymore. But the 6 years that I was vice president was really one of the most difficult years of my life. The Filipinos here know what I'm referring to. I have been subjected to a lot of misogynistic, not just remarks, but treatment. I have been the subject of gendered disinformation. I have been most vulnerable because I am a woman. I had to work 10 times more than my male counterpart to get the same amount of appreciation that they get. If you look at the gender gap index all over the world, the rankings for the gender gap index, the Philippines is doing very well. I am not sure if it changed this year, but the last time I checked, we were number 19 out of 146 countries. We were doing okay. I think in the Asia Pacific region, we were number 2 after New Zealand. So the Philippines is doing okay as far as gender responsiveness is concerned. But from somebody who's been there, the last 6 years were very, very difficult. It's still a very patriarchal society. We have a number of very, very good, very brave women leaders. But these very good, very brave women leaders have been subjected to the most number of harassments also. In the last 6 years, aside from myself, we had a sitting senator who, because she was vocal about all the human rights abuses that were being committed, is still in jail until now. She has been in jail for almost 6 years already under trumped-up charges. I don't know if you've heard about Maria Ressa. Maria Ressa is our Nobel Peace Prize winner for 2022. She was also Hauser leader in 2021. But Maria Ressa, because of the braveness, the boldness of the media outlet that she founded, has also been subjected to a lot of harassments. I do not know if we were male, we would have been subjected to the same kind of harassment. We are surviving, to say the least, but it shouldn't be the end all and the be all of everything. As I've said, when I was vice president, I've been exposed to a lot more realities on the ground. Just to give you some anecdotes, we have been helping weaving communities all over the country because most of the weavers are members of indigenous tribes. So there's one indigenous tribe in a place called Lake Cebu. The Filipinos here should know Lake Cebu. It's a town in the province of South Cotabato in Mindanao. So we're helping a weaving community, all women, in Lake Cebu. And then one of the problems of this group of women was that they couldn't concentrate on their weaving because they couldn't leave their children behind. So we helped build, it was not just us but partners also. We helped build a sort of a pre-K, sort of a nursery school for their children inside the compound of the weaving center, so that when they're doing the weaving, their children would attend. And then, you know what we found out? We found out that the women were secretly attending the lessons because they didn't know how to read and to write. And the heartbreaking thing about it is that they were doing so surreptitiously because they felt like their husbands would be angry that they're trying to be educated. They were very careful not to hurt the egos of their husbands because all of them are not educated. So it was so heartbreaking that they had to do it um, very quietly. They were doing a lot of things just to make sure that their husbands wouldn't know. And it's heartbreaking. It opened our eyes to the realities that, there's a different set of circumstances for many different women. For some women, it's just economic empowerment. For other women, it's education. And for a lot of women, it's also health. So the reason why I'm telling you this is, since the theme is stories from the ground, I really believe that the most effective way by which we can serve the women we want to serve is to be there with them. Because being there, immersing ourselves in the communities, it breeds empathy. And it is through empathy that we are able to develop the best policies. It is through empathy that we make sure that the policies and the programs that we do are truly responsive to the needs of the women. I have been here for a month. I have been encouraging students to immerse themselves as often as they can, because I think it's in immersing ourselves that we become better leaders. I always say this back in the Philippines, that empathy is a spiritual muscle. That the more you practice it, the more you do it, the more you get better at it. And if we become better leaders, then it's our constituents. It's our constituents who will benefit from our good leadership. So as far as serving women is concerned, we have to be aware that there's no one size fits all. It's really no matter what your status is, you go through a lot of ups and downs. You go through a lot of many difficult moments just because you're women. But there should be better ways of doing policy work, better ways at serving them by immersing ourselves in the struggles that they're also undergoing. So I think that would be my message. The core of the message really is we are so lucky that we have been given this privilege of being together and discuss these things. Not all women are lucky. So we have to make sure that we provide them with the opportunities that are available to us, so that they will learn what we have learned and benefit from the wisdom of everyone.